What happens when a beloved entertainer walks onto a talk show set, expecting a warm conversation, only to face a host who seems determined to tear him down in front of millions? In just 39 seconds of one shocking comment, what started as a simple interview turned into one of the most explosive moments in daytime television history. This is the story of how Jamie Foxx, a man known for his charm and talent, found himself in a battle of words with Tamron Hall, a host whose behavior that day left audiences stunned and questioning everything they thought they knew about professional broadcasting. The studio lights were bright that afternoon as Jamie Foxx walked onto the set with his signature smile. The audience clapped and cheered. They loved him. He had been in the business for decades, making people laugh, bringing characters to life, and winning awards along the way. Today was supposed to be simple. He was there to talk about his latest project, share some stories, and connect with fans. But from the moment he sat down in that guest chair, something felt different. Tamron Hall smiled at the cameras, but there was something cold behind it, something calculated. Jamie noticed it immediately but brushed it off. He had done thousands of interviews. He knew how to handle anything. "So Jamie," Tamron began, her voice sharp even as she tried to sound casual, "you are here today, and I have to say, I am surprised you even showed up." The audience went quiet. That was not a normal way to start an interview. Jamie laughed it off, trying to keep things light. "Well, thank you for having me," he said with genuine warmth. "I always love talking to people and sharing what I've been working on." But Tamron was not interested in warmth. She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Let me be honest with you," she said, her tone shifting to something more aggressive. "A lot of people have been talking. A lot of people have questions about you. And I think it is time someone asked you the real questions instead of letting you just breeze through another interview with your charm." Jamie's smile faded slightly. He could feel the tension building. The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This was not going the way anyone expected. "I am here to answer any questions you have," Jamie replied, keeping his composure. "That is what interviews are for, right? Conversation." Tamron laughed, but it was not a friendly laugh. It was dismissive, almost mocking. "Conversation," she repeated. "Right. See, that is the problem with people like you, Jamie. You think you can just smile and everything is fine. You think your talent gives you a pass. A pass for what?" Jamie asked, his voice still calm but with a hint of confusion. "Tamron, I am not sure what you are getting at here." The host sat back in her chair, crossing her arms like she was preparing for battle. "I am getting at the fact that you have had it easy for too long," she said bluntly. "You walk into rooms and everyone just loves you. Everyone just accepts whatever you say. But I am not everyone, Jamie. I do not give free passes." The audience was silent now. You could hear people breathing. This was uncomfortable. This was wrong. Jamie Foxx, a man who had always been respectful, who had always shown kindness in his interviews, was being attacked for no reason. "I have never asked for a free pass," Jamie said, his voice firmer now. "I have worked for everything I have. I have earned my place through hard work, dedication, and treating people with respect." Tamron scoffed, on live television. "Respect," she said, shaking her head. "You want to talk about respect? Let me tell you something about respect, Jamie. Respect is earned, and I am not sure you have earned mine." The camera operators exchanged glances. The producers in the control room were panicking. This was spiraling out of control. But Tamron Hall did not care. She was on a roll, and she was not stopping. "I have been in this business a long time," Tamron continued, her voice rising. "I have fought for my seat at this table. I have had to prove myself over and over again, and then people like you just glide through like it is nothing." Jamie took a deep breath. He was a professional. He had dealt with difficult interviews before, but this was different. This was personal. This was an attack. "Tamron, I do not know what is happening here," he said calmly, "but I came on this show in good faith. I came here to have a conversation, to connect with your audience, to talk about my work. I did not come here to be disrespected." But Tamron was not backing down. If anything, she was getting more aggressive. "Oh, now you feel disrespected?" she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Now you know how it feels. Maybe this is a lesson you needed to learn. Maybe someone needed to knock you down a peg." The audience gasped. Some people started whispering to each other. This was beyond uncomfortable now. This was cruel. Jamie Foxx sat there, a man who had brought joy to millions, being treated like he had done something wrong when all he had done was show up. I do not need to be knocked down, Jamie said, his voice steady, but you could hear the emotion underneath. I am a human being. I deserve to be treated with basic decency, just like anyone else. Tamron leaned forward again, her finger pointing at him. Basic decency, she repeated mockingly. You know what, Jamie? I think you have gotten too comfortable. I think you have forgotten what it is like to actually work for something, to struggle, to fight. Jamie shook his head slowly. He could not believe what he was hearing. I have struggled, he said quietly but firmly. I have fought for everything I have. I came from nothing. I built my career from the ground up. And I have never, not once, treated anyone the way you are treating me right now. The audience started clapping. They were supporting Jamie. They could see what was happening. They could see that Tamron Hall was out of line, that she was being cruel for no reason. But Tamron did not like that. She did not like losing control of her own show. Oh, so now you are playing the victim, she snapped, talking over the applause. Of course, that is what people like you do. You turn it around and make yourself the victim. I am not playing anything, Jamie said, his voice rising slightly for the first time. I am telling you the truth. I came here to have a respectful conversation. You were the one who decided to turn this into something else. Tamron stood up from her chair. She actually stood up, towering over Jamie as he sat there, trying to maintain his composure. You want to know what I think? She said, her voice loud and sharp. I think you are overrated. I think you have been coasting on your reputation for years. I think you are not as talented as everyone says you are. The entire studio went dead silent. Even the camera operator stopped moving. This was unbelievable. This was a host, on her own show, attacking a guest in the most personal way possible. Jamie Foxx sat there, and for a moment, he just stared at her. You could see the hurt in his eyes. You could see the shock. But then something changed. He stood up too. I am done, he said simply. You are done when I say you are done, Tamron shot back. This is my show. Jamie looked at her, and then he looked at the audience, and then he looked at the cameras. No, he said clearly. I am done. I do not care whose show this is. I do not care how important you think you are. I will not sit here and let you disrespect me. I will not let you insult me in front of millions of people. I have too much self-respect for that. He started to walk off the set. Tamron's face turned red. She was not used to people standing up to her. She was not used to losing control. Where do you think you are? Going? She demanded. You cannot just walk off my show. Jamie stopped and turned back to face her one last time. Watch me, he said calmly. If you leave this set right now, Tamron said, her voice shaking with anger, you will never work in this town again. I will make sure of it. Do you understand me? I have power. I have influence. I can destroy your career. The audience gasped again, louder this time. Some people actually stood up. They could not believe what they were hearing. Tamron Hall was threatening Jamie Foxx on live television. She was trying to intimidate him into staying, into taking more abuse. But Jamie Foxx just looked at her with something close to pity. You know what, Tamron? He said softly. I feel sorry for you. I really do. Because that right there, what you just said, that shows who you really are. You think power and influence make you important. You think being able to hurt people makes you strong. But it does not. It just makes you cruel. Get off my set. Tamron suddenly shouted, her composure completely shattered. Get off my set right now. I was already leaving, Jamie said calmly. You did not have to ask twice. No, you do not get to leave on your terms, Tamron said, her voice almost hysterical now. Security. I want him escorted out. I want him removed from my studio immediately. Jamie stood there, watching as security guards awkwardly approached. They did not want to do this. You could see it on their faces. They respected Jamie Foxx. Everyone in that room respected him, except for one person. But they had a job to do. It is okay, Jamie said to the security guards, holding up his hands. I am going. You do not have to escort me. I know where the door is. But Tamron was not satisfied. She wanted the last word. She needed it. You are banned, she shouted after him. You hear me, Jamie Foxx? You are banned from this show. You will never set foot on this stage again. Jamie paused at the edge of the stage and looked back one more time. The audience was watching, completely silent. Some people had tears in their eyes. They had just watched something terrible happen to someone they admired. That is fine with me, Jamie said quietly but clearly. I would not come back, even if you begged me. And with that, he walked off. The cameras kept rolling. The audience did not know what to do. Some people started clapping for Jamie. Others just sat there in shock. Tamron Hall stood in the middle of her own set, breathing hard, her face flushed, realizing that she had just made a huge mistake. "We are going to take a break," she said to the cameras, but her voice was shaking. "We will be right back." But they were not right back. The show went to commercial, and backstage, chaos erupted. Producers were yelling, assistants were crying. Everyone knew that something historic had just happened, something that would be talked about for years. In his dressing room, Jamie Foxx sat down and took a deep breath. His hands were shaking slightly, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of what had just happened. He had never been treated like that before. Never. In all his years in the entertainment industry, through all the interviews and appearances and talk shows, no one had ever attacked him the way Tamron Hall just did. There was a knock on his door. It was one of the show's producers, a young woman who looked absolutely mortified. "Mr. Fox?" she said quietly. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. That should never have happened. We had no idea she was going to do that." Jamie looked at her and managed a small smile. "It is not your fault," he said kindly. "You did not do anything wrong. I just want you to know," the producer continued, her voice cracking, "that everyone here, all of us, we think you handled that with so much grace. You were a complete professional." She was out of line. "I appreciate that," Jamie said. "I really do. Is there anything we can do?" the producer asked. "Anything at all?" Jamie thought for a moment and then shook his head. "Just take care of yourselves," he said. "This is not going to be easy for any of you." Back on the set, Tamron Hall was having a very different conversation with her own producers. They were trying to explain to her the magnitude of what she had just done. They were trying to make her understand that this was not good, that this was going to have consequences. "I do not care." Tamron kept saying, "I do not care." He needed to hear those things. Someone needed to say them. But Tamron, one of the producers, tried to reason with her. He did not do anything wrong. He came here to promote his project. "You attacked him for no reason." "There was a reason," Tamron insisted. "There is always a reason. People like him need to be challenged. They need to be questioned." "That was not challenging him," another producer said carefully. "That was attacking him. That was personal. And you threatened him on live television." Tamron waved her hand dismissively. "He was being dramatic," she said. "He could have stayed. He chose to leave." "You told security to remove him," the producer pointed out. "You banned him from the show." "Because he was disrespectful to me," Tamron said, her voice rising again. "On my own show, in front of my audience. I will not tolerate that." The producers looked at each other. They knew they were fighting a losing battle. Tamron Hall was not going to admit she was wrong. She was not going to see what everyone else had seen. She was trapped in her own perspective, unable to recognize that she had just become the villain in her own story. Meanwhile, in the audience, people were still processing what they had just witnessed. Some of them were already pulling out their phones, texting friends, posting on social media. Within minutes, the video clips would be everywhere. Within hours, everyone would be talking about it. "Did that really just happen?" One audience member whispered to another. "I cannot believe it," her friend whispered back. "Poor Jamie. He did not deserve that. She was so mean to him," someone else added. "Like, really mean, for no reason." "I used to like her," another person said sadly. "But after this, I do not know. That was hard to watch." And it was hard to watch because what people had witnessed was not just a disagreement or a heated discussion. They had watched a powerful person abuse that power. They had watched someone with a platform use it to hurt someone else. They had watched cruelty disguised as journalism. Jamie Foxx finished gathering his things. He walked out of the studio with his head held high. He did not run. He did not hide. He walked out like the professional he had always been. Staff members lined the hallways, and many of them quietly nodded to him or gave him small smiles of support. Some even started clapping as he walked by. One of the cameramen, a man who had been working in television for 30 years, stopped Jamie in the hallway. "I just want you to know," the cameraman said, "that was one of the classiest exits I've ever seen. You handled that better than most people would have." Jamie shook his hand. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "That means a lot. I have filmed a lot of interviews," the cameraman continued, "a lot of moments. But I have never seen a host treat a guest like that. Never. You did nothing wrong, man. Nothing." Jamie nodded, clearly touched by the support. "I just wish it had not happened," he said quietly. "I really came here in good faith." "We know," the cameraman said. "Everyone knows." As Jamie left the building, stepping out into the afternoon sun, he took a moment to breathe. His phone was already buzzing with messages. His agent, his manager, his friends, everyone was reaching out. They had heard. The word was spreading fast, but inside the studio, the show was trying to continue. Tamron Hall had returned from commercial break, but she was different now. She was trying to act like nothing had happened, trying to move on to her next segment, but the audience was not with her anymore. They sat in silence, offering only polite, uncomfortable applause when prompted. The energy had completely shifted. "So, moving on," Tamron said, forcing a smile. "We have a wonderful cooking segment coming up next where we will learn how to make the perfect autumn soup." But nobody cared about soup. Nobody cared about the rest of the show. Everyone was still thinking about what had happened with Jamie Foxx. Everyone was still processing the cruelty they had witnessed. In the control room, the director was having a crisis. "We need to cut that segment," he said urgently. "We cannot air that." "It is too much." "It is too late," someone else said. "It was live. It is already out there." "Then we need damage control," another producer said. "We need a statement. We need something." But what could they say? How could they possibly spin what had just happened? Tamron Hall had attacked a beloved entertainer on live television. She had insulted him, threatened him, and had him removed from the set. There was no way to make that look good. There was no way to turn that into a positive. Back in the hallway, more staff members were talking quietly among themselves. "I cannot believe she did that," one said. "I can," another replied bitterly. "She has been getting worse and worse, more demanding, more difficult. This was just a matter of time." "But Jamie Foxx," a third person said. "Out of everyone she could have gone after, she picked one of the nicest guys in the industry. That is insane." "She wanted to make a statement," someone else suggested. "She wanted to show she was tough, that she would not just softball questions to celebrities." "But there is a difference between asking tough questions and being cruel," another staff member pointed out. "She crossed a line today. A big line." They were right. Tamron Hall had crossed a line, and everyone knew it. Everyone except her. As the show limped to its conclusion, Tamron tried to maintain her composure. She thanked her audience, reminded them to tune in tomorrow, and smiled at the cameras. But it was hollow. Everyone could see it. The magic was gone. The trust was broken. When the cameras finally stopped rolling, Tamron walked off the set without saying a word to anyone. She went straight to her dressing room and closed the door. Inside, she sat down and looked at herself in the mirror. For just a moment, just a brief moment, she wondered if maybe she had gone too far. But then she pushed that thought away. She had to believe she was right. She had to believe she had done what needed to be done. Because if she admitted she was wrong, if she admitted she had just ruined her own reputation on live television, she would have to face the consequences. And Tamron Hall was not ready to face consequences. Meanwhile, Jamie Foxx was in his car, driving away from the studio. His phone kept buzzing. His social media was exploding. People were defending him, supporting him, expressing their shock and anger at how he had been treated. But Jamie was not thinking about social media. He was thinking about the moment when Tamron Hall had looked at him with such contempt, such dismissal. He was thinking about how it felt to be attacked for no reason. He was thinking about how hard he had worked to stay calm, to stay professional, to not sink to her level. And he was proud of himself for that, because he could have fought back. He could have yelled. He could have said terrible things to her in return. But he did not. He took the high road. He walked away with his dignity intact. And that, more than anything else, was what mattered. As the sun began to set that evening, the video clips were everywhere. News outlets were picking up the story. Entertainment websites were writing articles. Everyone was talking about the moment when Jamie Foxx walked off the Tamron Hall show after being attacked by the host herself. And the consensus was clear. Jamie was the hero of this story. He was the one who had been wronged. He was the one who had handled an impossible situation with grace and class. And Tamron Hall, she was the villain. She was the one who had let her ego and her need for control turn a simple interview into a disaster. She was the one who would have to live with the consequences of her actions. In his home that night, Jamie Foxx sat with his family. They had watched the clips. They had seen what happened. And they rallied around him, offering love and support. "You were amazing, Dad," his daughter said, hugging him tight. "You did not let her break you." "I tried," Jamie said with a tired smile. "I really tried to keep it together." "You did more than keep it together," his son added. "You showed everyone what real strength looks like, what real class looks like." Jamie nodded, grateful for his family, grateful that despite what had happened, he had people who loved him and supported him, people who knew the truth about who he was. And across town, in her own home, Tamron Hall sat alone. Her phone was buzzing too, but she was not answering it. She was not reading the messages. Because deep down, in a place she would not admit to anyone, not even herself, she knew what those messages probably said. She knew that people were angry. She knew that she had made a mistake, but admitting that would mean admitting she was wrong. And Tamron Hall had built her entire career on being right, on being strong, on being in control. So she sat there in the darkness, alone with her thoughts, while the rest of the world talked about the day she kicked Jamie Foxx off her show, the day she let her worst instincts take over, the day she became the story for all the wrong reasons. And Jamie Foxx? He went to bed that night knowing that he had done the right thing. He had stood up for himself. He had refused to be treated poorly. He had walked away from a toxic situation instead of participating in it. And in the morning, when he woke up, he would still be Jamie Foxx, talented, respected, loved. Nothing Tamron Hall said or did could change that, because at the end of the day, the truth always comes out. And the truth was simple. One person had come to that studio to share and connect. The other had come to tear down and control. One person had shown kindness even in the face of cruelty. The other had shown only cruelty. And everyone who watched, everyone who witnessed that moment, knew exactly who was who. The interview that was supposed to be simple, that was supposed to be just another day of promotion, had turned into something much bigger. It had become a lesson, a reminder, a moment that showed the world what happens when power goes unchecked. What happens when someone forgets that being kind matters more than being right? What happens when a host forgets that their guests are human beings deserving of respect? And most importantly, it showed what happens when someone has the courage to walk away, to say no, to refuse to accept mistreatment, no matter how powerful the person doing the mistreating might be. Jamie Foxx had walked off that set, and in doing so, he had taken his power back. He had shown that no interview, no show, no host was worth sacrificing his self-respect. That night, as the world continued to buzz with conversation about what they had witnessed, one thing became crystal clear to everyone watching. Jamie Foxx had won. Not because he fought back, not because he was louder or meaner or more aggressive, but because he knew when to walk away. Because he understood that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is simply refuse to participate in someone else's cruelty. And Tamron Hall had lost. Not just a guest, not just an interview. She had lost something much more important. She had lost the respect of her audience. She had lost the trust of her staff. She had lost the moral high ground. All because she could not control her need to tear someone down. The cameras had captured it all. Every word, every expression, every moment of that explosive confrontation. And now it would live forever. People would watch it, study it, discuss it. It would become one of those moments that defines a career. For Jamie Foxx, it would be remembered as the day he stood up for himself with grace and dignity. For Tamron Hall, it would be remembered as the day she revealed who she really was when the spotlight was on and the pressure was high. As the night grew late and the world slowly began to quiet down, the story was far from over. But the most important part, the part that mattered most, had already been told. It had been told in those 39 seconds when everything changed, when a simple interview became a battle, when respect was demanded and denied, when one person chose kindness and another chose cruelty, and when the whole world got to see exactly what happens when you treat someone with such disrespect that they have no choice but to walk away.